Welcome back to SportsLine, everybody. We continue our conversation with the Athletics' Joe Rexrode, sports columnist, of course, friend of show. And Joe, I was telling you during the break, I did my old trick that I do with my guests going up against the break. You know, I ask you to hang on. That way, if you say no, you're the heel and not me. See, so.
Yes, you know all about turning someone else into a heel. See? You got all the tricks, man.
That's right. Hey, Joe, before we talk to the Titans, I know you got deep Michigan roots, right? Big Michigan State guy. And, you know, I know both teams this year are struggling a little bit, Michigan State and Michigan. What did you make of the whole Juwan Howard situation with him striking one of the assistant coaches there the other day in that game? And, you know, listen, me personally, I was always a huge fan of the Fab Five. They were doing their thing right at a very influential time of my life, and I've always had respect for Juwan Howard. But, man, I mean, he did get suspended for 5 games and, you know, fined a pretty good bit. But just, you know, you hate to see that in that type of situation, especially amongst coaches who are supposed to be, you know, the guiders of these young men.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's disappointing because, you know, I got a ton of respect for Juwan Howard. I think he's a good coach, a good guy. And, you know, obviously emotions got the best of him. It's happened before a little bit. You know, he had a huge thing with Mark Turgeon at the Big Ten tournament last year, and he said, like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not the same as this, but, I mean, you got to control yourself. And, look, I think there is some I think when Greg Gard kind of, like, stopped him with his arms, you know, like, maybe in that situation, you just go ahead and let someone walk on by. They're mad. We've seen that before. You see the blow-bys sometimes where a coach doesn't want to shake hands or he just are real quick and he's out of there and he's ticked off. But, you know, Greg Gard kind of stops him, and that, to me, it's like then now you got a possibility. Still, no excuse to strike someone at all. I think that they got the punishment about right. I mean, I know some people were talking about firing him, and I mean, some people are making the Woody Hayes comparison, which to me, I mean, Woody Hayes, closed fist, was punching another player after he intercepted a pass on the sideline. Like that's not the same as this. This is not good, but it's not the same as hitting a player on the other team. So I think it's about right for a suspension. And you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about like the handshake line. Look, I'm not saying this is a reason to get rid of the handshake line or anything like that. I will say sometimes the handshake line to me is a little whatever. I mean, you know, they don't do it in the professional ranks. They used to not do it in college basketball either. I'm not sure exactly when it became a thing that you did every game.
Right.
I mean, I guess it sets a good example because you want kids to do it for sure. I don't know. Sometimes it can actually lead to friction that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with the handshake line. Listen, I played rugby for 19 years, Joe, and I've been in absolute wars against teams and opponents that I absolutely hated. Sports hated, but still hated nonetheless. And, you know, you can still keep your emotions in check for 2 seconds and shake the guy's hand after the game, you know. So, I agree. But I agree with you as well. I think the suspension was warranted. The fine was warranted. I don't believe Juwan Howard should lose his job over it, but it is kind of ironic that both Michigan teams are struggling a little bit this year as opposed to last year. Joe, on to the Titans, and you know, Titans fans, and for good reason, still disappointed, I'm sure, about how the season ended. You know, you win the division, #1 seed in the AFC playoffs. You lose your first game at home to a Bengals team that, you know, at least did make the Super Bowl. But, you know, everybody talks about the Titans' window now to win a championship. And, you know, I think it's still open, but it's starting to close a little bit. And, you know, when you look at some of these established and up-and-coming teams in the AFC, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't rule anything out completely for next year, and I think they're still going to be a really good team. And I would, right now, as things stand, I would pick them to win the division. But I agree that it looks tougher as things go, and you have these other teams in the conference that have such good young quarterbacks. And then that's where the Titans have to compensate in other areas. They are. I mean, look, my opinion of Ryan Tannehill did change this year, and
Yeah,
certainly
so did mine.
I mean, you can't perform like that in a big moment, and I don't know how. I mean, when you perform like that in a big moment, that's going to happen. So you have to compensate in other ways. I think this team could be really good defensively. Mm-hmm. I think they should prioritize keeping that group together, and you hope that like a Caleb Farley in his second year, healthy, can become a good player for you. But they got a lot of work to do on offense, and it's just they got to figure things out while I'm sure having to cut some people they'd love to have because of the salary cap. So it's a huge offseason in terms of, to me, finding a tight end, finding a fast wide receiver, and then from a coaching perspective too, I do think that Tannehill's season has to be traced somewhat to the OC change. So there's a lot on Todd Downey's plate, and of course now you got the passing game coordinator Tim Kelly, and we'll see what kind of difference that makes.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Tannehill, right? He's a stand-up guy. He's a good guy. I think he's, done a lot of positive things for this organization since becoming the starter. But, Joe, you know as well as I do, that's 3 straight playoff games that he started and not played well, and the Titans have lost. And, like you said, you got Herbert coming up in L.A. with the Chargers. Mahomes is Mahomes, right? Joe Burrow just almost single-handedly led his team to the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, Lamar Jackson is a former MVP in this league. He's not going anywhere. Josh Allen, et cetera, et cetera. You start to wonder, if you get in a big playoff game, can Ryan Tannehill go toe-to-toe with one of these either elite or soon-to-be elite quarterbacks in the AFC?
Yeah, well, and the guy we haven't talked about yet is probably as key as anything is Derrick Henry going to continue to be a dominant player in this league? And if he is, and he's all back, and those screws in his foot are secure, and he's a 1,700, 1,800 yard guy next year, then and you can take that in the playoffs, and that's one big way you can help Ryan Tannehill. I mean, they have been dynamic and just terrific for a lot of, especially in 2019 and 2020, with those two guys playing off each other. It's Derrick Henry. Can you protect Tannehill better? Can A.J. Brown stay healthy and take another step as a player? Sure. There's certainly some potential answers here, but a lot of things I think would have to really break their way to, in the scenario you're talking about, to win multiple games in a postseason.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, and we'll see what the Titans do. I agree with you. I think they're going to be a good team next year. I agree with you also that if I were picking who wins the AFC South today, I would certainly pick the Tennessee Titans. But a lot can happen. We got free agency, we got the draft, and of course we've got mini camps, OTAs, and then training camps. It'll be here before you know it, Joe. So but for now we've got plenty of hockey and college basketball to talk about. Joe, I appreciate you coming on, my man. Always a pleasure to have you on. I enjoy your work both at The Athletic and when I can listen over at 102.5 The Game, on with another friend of show, Robbie Stanley. You guys do a great job on your morning show there. Were you aware that I also do a morning sports talk show here in town? I don't know if you knew that or not.
I am very aware, and two of my favorite people, you and the Poster, man. That's good stuff.
I appreciate it. Well, listen, have a great night. My best to you and your family, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you sometime this week.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yep, there he goes, Joe Rexrode, sports columnist for The Athletic. Of course, one of our good friends of this show, does a great job there as well. And yes, you can listen to him every Monday through Friday with Robbie Stanley, another friend of show on 102.5 The Game, 6 to 10 here locally. Might as well plug my show. The Greg Pogue and Jon Burton Show. You can listen every weekday morning from 9 to 11 on WNSR Nashville Sports Radio. All right, we got all the plugs out of the way. We're going to take another break. We'll come back with more. Your phone calls are welcome as well. Stay with us here on SportsLine.